Today, we're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff that could just make you live longer. I say could, I don't wanna make any promises. I mean, who knows? You could get hit by a bus. Not that I want you to... This started off poorly. Anyway, stick around because I wanna share some nuggets I learned from reading this book. It says the discovery of it is one of the most important breakthroughs in biomedicine in the last few decades. Next step, preserving your muscles. So this is the thing that threw me for a loop though when I read this chapter. Is it too late? Apparently not. This next thing is actually considered the anti-aging vitamin. Sex might just save your life. You just gotta do it. One daily salad may mean years more time on this planet. Exercise is literally not a waste of your time. Here's something that I found interesting that changed what I put in my own breakfast. Had a 13% lower risk of death from any cause. Wow. Greetings and welcome to or welcome back to PB with Jay. Here on the channel, we focus on all things plant-based goodness. And today I want to focus specifically on Dr. Michael Greger's How Not to Age. And this is a book that is primarily about longevity and, not dying early. Recently, we did a video on the channel focusing on the FGF1, the protein stuff information in this book. And as I expected it to be, a little controversial for some people in the comments who are steadfast in believing that you can't get any protein like you can get animal protein. And it's just not true. Anyway. In that video, I cited all of the scientific documentation from this book, and I'll do the same in this book down below. So all of the information I'm giving you today is stuff that has been sourced from this book, which he has sourced from numerous places, and it's all backed by science, and it's in the description down below if you need backup for it. I'm not gonna go to war at anyone in the comments over the information here. It's not my own, I didn't do the research. I'm just sharing it with you. So how this video is gonna work today is I have made a lot of notes in here of stuff that I find interesting, that I thought would be interesting to share. Some of the stuff I'm gonna turn into proper full-length videos at some point with different content, but there's just so many little nuggets that I thought it would be interesting for me to just kind of flip through the book to some random sections that I thought might be interesting to share with you. And as you can see, it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff in here. So I could make several videos like this. If you're interested and like this format, let me know in the comments down below and potentially I'll do a part 2 of this series. And if you are just straight up interested in buying this book, I have a description and the link down below. Getting it, gets you the book, but also helps support the channel as well. Before we dive into this video proper, I'd like to give some shout outs to some of the people who have said hello to us in the comments down below. Debbie from Medford, Oregon. Nathalie from France, especially in the Champagne area. Champagne? That's embarrassing. Carolyn from Stevenage in the United Kingdom. Mary Ellen from Parry Sound, Ontario. Anthea from Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. Judy from Vancouver Island. Tanya from Table Rock Lake near Cape Fear, Missouri. Michelle from Ohio. JJ from Colorado. And Sasha from Chicago. If you'd like to shout out here on the channel, all you have to do is say hello in the comments down below. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and let us know what you do to try and live longer. And if you want to bump up on that shout out list, consider joining us over on the Mighty Network for a PB with J 2.0 experience where you get that perk as well as all of these other ones for the price of a crappy cup of coffee a month.
You don't have to drink that. Thank you.
All right, let's get nerdy. So the way the book is broken down is he describes it as being 4 books in one, with part 1 being Slowing 11 Pathways of Aging, part 2 is the Optimal Anti-Aging Regimen, and part 3 is Preserving Function, with part 4 being Dr. Greger's Anti-Aging 8, which sounds like just a video that I could do. I did Dr. Greger's Anti-Aging 8. That's interesting. Most people, here's the thing, if I pick this book up, I'd be like, I'm just gonna skip to that chapter because that just seems like a summary of the whole book. I wouldn't necessarily do that. There's lots of nuggets here throughout. So I'm gonna jump all around here because I could just go in order, but I think I wanna give you an overall of the various aspects of this book. So the first thing I wanna talk about here is the first pathway to slow aging he talks about, which is AMPK. Which, what does it stand for? AMP, activated protein kinase. It's an enzyme that acts as a sensor for plants and animals, similar to the fuel gauge in a car. It revs up when it detects a depletion of the universal fuel, just as the light may blink on your dashboard when you're almost out of gas. And it flips the switch in your body from storing fat to burning it to restore your energy balance. So it helps you lose weight. It's known as the fat controller. He talked about it a lot, I guess, in his book, How Not to Diet, which I also read, but there's only so much that sticks up in here for so long, which is why I reread these things. But, as he says right here, it doesn't only affect weight control, it also controls aging. Which is why it's in this book. It's all coming together. So he talks about all the different things that you can do to boost it. There's a lot of foods that are good for that. Barberries are good. Warning though, unsafe to eat during pregnancy and not recommended for consumption while breastfeeding. Barberries are. Black cumin is another good one. Hibiscus and lemon tea. Vinegars, I assume he means the majority of vinegars. Probably apple cider vinegar is your best. A balsamic vinegar, so use your vinegars in your cooking, baking also. And pretty much most fiber-rich foods can amp up your AMPK. It says the discovery of it is one of the most important breakthroughs in biomedicine in the last few decades. And right after that, a lot of the same things that are connected to AMPK are also connected to the next thing, which is called autophagy. That's how it's spelled. And it basically, what it actually means is, literally it almost translates to your body eating itself. So not necessarily starvation, but more like reduction. Our ancient ancestors only ate once a day or went for several days without food. So our autophagy, I'm just butchering that. I'm not gonna say the word anymore because it sounds bad. Anyway, those switches in our bodies were getting tripped all the time just because of how people had to live. So we didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. And also we were just killed off by, weird stuff back then. The life expectancy, well, not super high in traditionally speaking. But basically what he's saying here is that, modern people, our baseline for it is very low. Luckily, a lot of people in the world today, especially in North America, don't have an issue getting 3 meals a day, and a lot more than that. So one of the foods that he talks about that boosts up this, that made me super happy, is coffee. A systematic review of the health impacts of coffee concluded that daily coffee consumption should be encouraged in patients with chronic liver disease as well. There are observational research on caffeine and mortality in humans, and to date, more than 20 studies following more than 10 million individuals over time have found that drinking 3 cups of coffee a day had a 13% lower risk of death from any cause. If practiced throughout adulthood, it would be expected to translate into approximately an extra year of life. And you get to drink coffee. So this is the thing that threw me for a loop, though, when I read this chapter. Caffeine is relatively stable to heat, but a dark roast may wipe out nearly 90% of the calorigenic acid in the beans, which means that dark roast coffee, which is what I drink pretty much exclusively, is not as good as a medium or light roast coffee in terms of amping up this word. I'm not going to try to pronounce it again. I'm going to be switching over to a light and medium roast coffee for my coffee consumption. This is interesting. Adding dairy milk or creamer will undercut some of those coffee's benefits. That said, non-dairy milks such as almond, rice, oat, and coconut-based milks have so little protein that there shouldn't be a binding issue and it shouldn't affect it. But apparently it's the protein amount in the coffee that can have an effect on that. So maybe not soy. Soy milk might have an issue with that. This next thing is actually considered the anti-aging vitamin. And it's got a fun title that I'll explain. Spermidine. Spermidine? I'm going to say spermidine, and if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Here's how it got its name. It's kind of fun. In 1676, Antoine Van... I'm going to butcher this guy's name. This is his name. The father of microscopy was the first person in history to see bacteria. The following year, he saw his own sperm. And a year after that, in 1678, he discovered tiny crystals forming in the semen he had left sitting around. Gross. Didn't clean up the sperm sample that he was checking out under the microscope. Dude, you gotta clean your lab. Centuries later, this compound would be recognized as spermine. It and its precursor, spermidine, are actually found throughout the body, so their names are just an accident in history. It was independently discovered in brain tissue in 1885 and named neurodine, but when it was revealed to be the same as spermine, naming rights defaulted to the indelicate original, or more like as a combination, the spermidine thing, spermidine, tomato, I don't, Anyway, why is it interesting? It promotes cell growth. So it's the kind of thing in your body that helps you regrow things so that your body doesn't break down. But here's the problem. The problem is that by the time we hit the age 50, it starts to deplete inside of us almost by 50%. It's the reason why you stop healing as fast as you do when you get a cut or when you fall down and all that kind of stuff. So if it's going to be considered an anti-aging vitamin, where is that vitamin found? Great question. So he has a great list in here that is documented by the amount you get per 100-gram serving. Not necessarily the most amount that's in each food, because that's not necessarily helpful. Because, for example, on paper, garlic has as much spermidine as potatoes, but obviously it's easier to eat the same amount of a small baked potato than the same weight in garlic. So doing it by weight it's just silly. He recommends, or not he, but Swedish researchers calculated that a healthy diet would include 25 milligrams of spermidine for women and 30 milligram for men. So in the book here, he's got a nice little list of all the different top sources. Most of them, not shockingly, are plant-based. In the top 10, 4 of them are soy-based, with tempeh being the number 1. For a 100-gram serving of tempeh, you get 9.7 milligrams of tempeh, spermidine, which is almost like a third of what you're supposed to get. Other things on this list include mushrooms, mango, edamame, green peas, lentil soup, soybean, lettuce, corn, soy milk, broccoli, chickpeas, cauliflower. Here's something that I found interesting that changed what I put in my own breakfast. Wheat germ. Wheat germ, it's not as high on the list as some things like the tempeh, but for 1 tablespoon, you get 2.5 milligrams of it. So it's, put 2 tablespoons on your oatmeal, on whatever you have for breakfast. Throw it into a soup. You'll never notice. It'll just kind of blend right in and thicken it a little bit. Pound for pound, dollar for dollar, it's probably your best source of actually just having a straight up bit of a little boost to it right in there. Now, maybe you noticed a connection between tempeh and the wheat germ. So why are those two things some of the better bangs for your bucks? Well, it's because they help promote your gut bacteria, your microbiome. Fermented foods they're just good for your gut. And what's good for your gut is good for your body. Obviously, we're all told to eat more vegetables and fruits, and they're good for us. But how do they help us live longer? So, as he says here, one of the least controversial advices that most people will say is eat fruits and vegetables. And as he says here, basically the term vegetable means all parts of a plant that aren't fruit. But how much longer do we live if we eat produce? So what he says here is, compared to those getting 5 servings of fruits or veggies a day, those only eating 2 daily servings may live 7 fewer months. Having only 1 serving a day may equate to living about 1.5 years less. With just a half a serving a day, you may live 2 fewer years. If you don't eat any servings of fruits or vegetables a day, you could take 3 years off of your lives. Wow. So for someone who is eating sufficiently unhealthy, eating just a single serving of fruit each day, like 1 apple, could potentially mean a 19-month difference between life and death. 1 daily salad may mean years more time on this planet. Years! By eating a salad a day, you get extra years. Good deal. And, salads can be super tasty. Now, for those that are worried about, organic versus non-organic, the potential lifelong damage of any pesticides on fruits and vegetables has been estimated to only cut a few minutes off the average person's life. So while there are many reasons to choose organic produce over the conventional, concerns over pesticide residues should not discourage us from stuffing our faces with as many fruits and vegetables as possible. And I know what you're saying. I spent my entire life avoiding vegetables or fruit, and I'm now in my 50s or 60s or 70s. Is it too late? Apparently not. Women in their 70s with the most carotenoid phytonutrients in their bloodstream were twice as likely to survive 5 years as those with the least potentially doubling their likelihood of survival merely by eating more fruits and vegetables. And in a study out of Taiwan, spending just 50 cents a day in fruits and vegetables appeared to buy participants about a 10% drop in mortality. That's quite the deal. He says, imagine if there was a drug that could lower the risk of death by 10% with only good side effects. How much do you think drug companies would charge for that? Probably more than 50 cents. I agree. So one thing that I know for sure that will help you live longer is getting up and moving your body in a way that you enjoy. And that's why I am happy that today's video is sponsored by the fine folks at Fitville. Whether it comes to sports like pickleball, golf. How are your shoes?
Not wet at all. Yeah, they're really comfy.
Or even just straight up walking, Fitville has you covered with shoes that are designed for maximum comfort and support. They come in a variety of styles that will keep you good to go all year round. Even Wooly likes them.
I love my shoes. I love my shoes, and now I really love my sandals. They're so squishy, like they're soft, but in like a really good way. It's the first day I've worn them. No blisters, no rubbing. I feel like I can walk for miles.
And you can use our link in the description down below to get 30% off for the first 30 people using it, or 25% off for anyone who uses it after that. Okay, back to more nerdy facts. Next step, preserving your muscles. A loss in muscle mass is a characteristic of aging found in every species studied so far. In people, muscle mass tends to start to decline at age 30, accelerating after age 50 to a loss of 1 to 2% every year. The annual loss of muscle strength can be even more dramatic, suggesting a loss of muscle quality as well as quantity. Apparently, hand grip strength is commonly used as a proxy for total body strength. Your hand grip. Every kilogram of force decline in annual grip strength is correlated with a 33% increased risk of mortality. Even grip strength in middle age is highly predictive of late life disability 25 years later. So for those younger people watching this video, figure out your grip strength and see where you're at, because you might already not be in good shape. That said, here's the good news, that steady loss of muscle mass is not necessarily inevitable. You just have to put some effort into not losing it. Now, there's no such thing as the best, dose of exercise or workout for any one specific person. It varies from age to gender, body type, ethnicity. Lots of different factors play into it, and I'm far from an expert in that. However, the predominant thing that he suggests here, as well as I've just heard many places and I've said here on the channel before, is doing some form of resistance training. And you don't need to necessarily join a gym to do that. You can just get resistance bands, which are just like giant elastic bands that you can use. You can use your own body weight. There's lots of workout videos online. I'll put a link to a video that I have done before where we talk about the different workouts that I do. For me, I just have like a couple dumbbells at home. I got a yoga mat. I have resistance bands, and that's all I have. So probably for like less than the cost of a 6-month gym membership, way less, probably for the cost of like a 1 or 2 month gym membership, you can set up your home with everything you need and just do workouts that you can find here on YouTube, which is all I do. And as he says here, the importance of doing resistance training is to prevent age-related muscle weakness, treat muscle loss, and improve physical function. Older adults in bed rest lose muscle mass 6 times faster than young people. Yeah. You just got to do it. You got to work on that. That's what I've been doing. Like, honestly, it's the one thing that when I did my initial weight loss, I was not focused on retaining muscle. So a lot of the weight I lost was muscle, which I'm now regaining back. So I'm gaining weight because I lost the wrong kind. It's weird. It's complicated. I can maybe do another video on it. But anyway, I'm very much focused more on muscle gain than anything else in my workouts these days. And just to back this up, I found this other thing in the book. The best way to preserve muscle mass during weight loss is exercise. Resistance training, even just 3 times a week, can prevent more than 90% of lean body mass during caloric restriction and weight loss. The same may be true of bone loss. Why didn't I read this like 3 years ago? Because the book didn't exist, is the answer. The next way to live longer, caloric restriction. 3 meals a day plus snacks is an evolutionary novel behavior. The story of life on Earth is a story of starvation. We already kind of talked earlier on in the video about how, a lot of people don't have a problem with getting their 3 meals in a day, but the truth is, historically, 3 meals a day, that's just an invention. That's something people made up. There's lots of people that eat very different ways. Some people do versions of fasting where they just eat once a day, or they eat within an eating window, It doesn't really matter, and that's not necessarily what they're saying here. But what he's getting at is that caloric restriction without malnutrition is one of the most powerful pharmacological? Let's go with that. Interventions for extending health span and lifespan across a multitude of species. The most important discovery in the biology of aging to date. And the key point to what he just said there is reducing calories without reducing nutrition. So it doesn't mean necessarily eating less food. It means eating less calorically dense food. So, eating lots of vegetables and lots of fruits, things that will fill you up, that's great. You can eat those things until you are full to the brim. What they're suggesting here is keeping your calories in check, your calories in balance. So highly caloric foods like your fats and your starches and those things. Not to say you can't have them. It's really, really important to eat healthy fats and carb sources. But you want to have a really good balance with the scale tipping over onto eating greens and vegetables and fruits and those kind of things. There's also a lot of correlations to time-restricted eating and longevity. I've done another video on intermittent fasting that I'll put a link in the description to down below. But what's interesting here, he says, fewer than 1 in 10 Americans may even make it 12 hours a day without eating. Time-restricted eating is defined as fasting for periods of longer than 12 hours, but less than 24. I myself tend to stop eating around probably 7 o'clock at night most days, and I usually don't have my breakfast until 8:30, sometimes 9 o'clock in the morning. So I do like a 14-hour fast, I guess. And then I break the fast. See where these words? You break the fast. That's where that came from, if you didn't already know that. Here's interesting. He talks about a study that was done where those who were randomized to stick to a 6-hour eating window experienced a drop in blood pressure, oxidative stress, and insulin resistance, even when all the study subjects were maintained at the same weight. The average drop in blood pressures were extraordinary, from 123 over 82 down to 112 over 72 in just 5 weeks, comparable to the effectiveness of potent blood pressure drugs. Prolonged nightly fasting with reduced evening food intake may decrease cancer risk and reoccurrence. And I've mentioned this on the channel before as well. Shifting food intake towards the morning, so eating breakfast, as they say, like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper, or skipped entirely, has beneficial cardiometabolic effects, whereas the same eating window pushed towards the evening, skipping breakfast, can have null or negative effects. So it really does matter. Think of it that way. You're most active during the day. Food is just energy. It's just calories that create energy that your body needs to expend. Why would you have a giant meal at the end of the day when you're just going to sit around and you're not going to burn it off or use it? It's just sitting there. It's fuel that your body is not going to use that gets stored as fat. It doesn't just sit around in reserve for the next day. Your body stores it away. That's how it works. So it's kind of useless to have a giant meal at the end of the day if you're not going to go off and have a sport or a walk or something, right? If you're just going to couch surf or read a book like this one, consider a real light meal. This is one of the things that kind of shocked me the most in the book, and one of my favorite little tidbits of information was inside the chapter or the section on epigenetics. So what are those? Epigenetics are rejuvenating cells to embryonic state. Basically, it means that our cells can be rejuvenated, like having the traces of aging wiped clean. That's epigenetics. And what's exceptionally good news about it is what he says here is that it means that our DNA is not our destiny. No matter our family's history, the lifestyle choices we make today can effectively turn on and off some of our genes, not only affecting us individually, but also our kids and maybe even our grandkids. So for those that are like, well, we have cancer in our family. We have histories of strokes and heart disease, all those kind of things. It doesn't mean that you have to have it. It doesn't mean your kids have to have it. It's not a bygone conclusion that you will get those things or die of those things if you put some effort into it. And how do you put your effort into that? In diet. One of the examples he gives that I really love, and I realize he's talking about a different species here, but stick with me, it's fun. Queen bees and worker bees are genetically identical. I didn't know this. Yet queens live for 3 years and lay up to 2,000 eggs a day, while worker bees may only live for 3 weeks and are functionally sterile. How can this be if there's no difference between them genetically? They have a different diet. Over the last few years, epigenetic clocks have become established as the robust measurements of chronological age, surpassing telomere length as the best age predictor. Why invent some costly Rube Goldberg approach to defining someone's age when you can simply ask them? Well, you can imagine forensic applications, the determination of an unidentified victim's age with a blood or tissue sample, but that just scratches the surface. The kicker is that the epigenetic clocks don't just track our chronological age, but appear to measure our true biological age. And what's interesting here is he says that the insurance industry is starting to jump on this, and that our premiums may soon be determined by our epigenetic age. And the highlight to this is you can change the rate at which you age and may soon be able to use epigenetic clocks to track that progress. I can't wait for that to be like a thing that we can all just look at. Epigenetic clocks. Here's a fun section he calls comparing butts to burgers. Just to give some context for some of the things we're about to talk about, researchers came up with the concept of a microlife, which is defined as 30 minutes of your life expectancy. It's just a way to determine length when you're talking about certain things that might affect your lifespan. So for reference, smoking 2 cigarettes or drinking 2 pints of beer on average would cost a 30-year-old man 1 microlife, as would each day he is 11 pounds overweight. So that's 30 minutes of your life a day by bringing those things into your life. So for those that are judgy about smokers and the fact that, someone's lighting up, 6 cigarettes a day, which would be 3 hours of your life. Is that right? 3 hours of your life? Holy cow. I mean, I don't smoke, but that's terrifying. Anyway, it's not that much different from being, 11 pounds overweight. 11 pounds overweight per day, it sounds like, takes 30 minutes off your life at the end of... Is that right? That can't be right. Eating at least 5 daily servings of fruits and vegetables a day may add an average of 4 years onto your lifespan. That's twice as beneficial as the estimate for exercising every day. But even exercising for 20 minutes may add 2 microlives to your life, so 1 hour. Everyone who says they don't have time to work out, exercising potentially gives you a 3-to-1 return on investment. So giving 20 minutes of your life to exercising theoretically gives you 60 minutes of life back. So you do have time to exercise. That's how it works. You're going to get, it's like getting a tax return, but it's a life return by exercising. That's fascinating. Exercise is literally not a waste of your time. But here's where it gets into the burgers part. A single burger is associated with losing 1 microlife. So every burger you eat takes half an hour of your life away. So let's just do the math on that. If you have a burger once a week, that's 52 burgers a year. That's half an hour for each burger. So that's 26 hours a year. That's a day. That's a day of your life gone from having a burger a week. Holy cow. Wow, I'm just doing the math now. So over the course of 10 years, over the course of, I don't want to think about it. Maybe don't eat burgers. Processed meat is just as bad. So imagine 2 people who are identical in every way except one consumes around 50 grams of processed meat a day, about 1 large sausage or hot dog or a few strips of bacon, and the other doesn't have any. Eating just that single daily serving of processed meat is expected to take off around 2 years of their life. Alternatively, you can frame it as a daily loss. Eating a sandwich with just 2 slices of deli meat, like bologna or ham, is expected to take off 1 hour of your life. And, processed meat is high in carcinogens. So there's that. And just how high, just how dangerous is it? The elevated risk of colorectal cancer is 18% for every 15 grams of processed meat consumed a day. So if you have a sandwich with 2 small slices of bologna every day for lunch, that would increase your colorectal cancer risk by 18%. A half pound pastrami and rye would bump it up to more like 80%. I have a recipe for, seitan faux meat in the description down below that will not take that life off of you. Just throwing it out there. So for those that are interested in knowing more about the foods that he does recommend that will help improve your longevity and all those other things, I have another video that I've either already posted or is coming up very soon where I'm actually going to make a bunch of recipes that you can make in a day from information in this book to boost your longevity. And they're not complicated meals. They're like day-to-day type foods. A lot of things that I'm already eating that I was surprised were as healthy as they were. Last but not least, let's talk about how sex might just save your life. Here's a fun fact that I didn't know. The vast majority of surveyed nursing homes report residents engaging in sex acts. Good for them! The cliche exists, sexual activity declines with age. However, that's not necessarily due to interest. It's often due to our declining body health. So the drop in sexual activity has less to do with age per se and more to do with, as I just said, declining health. The number one reason given for lack of sexual activity among older adults was their or their partner's physical health problems or limitations. In a study in which more than 2,000 men and women were followed for about 6 years, those with a higher frequency of sexual activity had a significantly lower risk of dying. Even though sexual activity may just be an indicator of general health, it might have protective physical and mental health benefits, for example, endorphins. Feel-good chemicals released during sex have been shown to improve natural killer cell functions. Researchers suggest the reduction in premature death risk may be because sex is a form of exercise. That said, people overestimate their exertions in bed, apparently. Having sex turns out to be the metabolic equivalent of bowling. I don't know about you, I like bowling, but there's other things I'd rather do than bowling. You know what I'm saying? This is a fun fact, and you don't have to let me in the comments down below if this is true for you, but it says the average bout of sexual activity lasts 6 minutes, and the average person burns 21 calories. So if you go longer, you burn more. That's the rate, though. It's 21 calories per 6 minutes of sexual activity. And here's a fun fact. If you want to improve your body odor, eat mushrooms. Women randomized to an increased intake of fruit, vegetables, nuts, and beans with a shift from animal to plant sources of fat experienced a significant increase in sexual function. The same was found for men and erectile function. The largest study on diet and erectile dysfunction found that each additional daily serving of fruits and vegetables may reduce the risk of erectile dysfunction by 10%. This could be due to increased circulation as well as decreased inflammation. Well, there you go. Fixing your zucchini by eating zucchinis. You know what I'm saying? Or your eggplant, the eggplant emoji. We all know what the eggplant emoji means, right? Thanks for hanging out and getting nerdy with me with Dr. Michael Greger's How Not to Age. Again, if you're interested in picking up this book, use the link in the description down below. Helps me out, helps you out, because you get the book and whatnot. If you want another video like this of me leafing through this book or another health-related book, let me know in the comments down below and I'll consider doing that. If you haven't liked this video yet, please do so YouTube knows to share it with other people. Subscribe for more videos like this, as well as many of the other things we do here on the channel. And YouTube thinks this is the video. You should stick around and just, check out this one next. Watch one more. Watch one more. Or save it for later. I mean, you do you.